High above North Lake, there's a volcano, and in its belly, new life emerges into the world. On this day, I was born yet again small and defensive, in the nest of a Diabloceratops. At first, all I saw was one of my siblings. For outside the mouth of the cave, there was a battle going on. My guardians were fighting desperately to protect this sacred space, and of course to protect the young lives inside. And fortunately, they had succeeded. Outside the mouth of the cave lay a huge dino, baked by the sun and worn down by furious blows. Its once glorious body was now left outside to rot, and my parents returned back to the nest as even more lives sprang up. They weren't without their battle scars. I was quite shocked to see the state of them, covered head to toe in scratches and blood. But they didn't hesitate to give me my first meal. The contrast between small, fresh, and vulnerable, and the large, battle-scarred, beaten down by the world, hardened by survival, the adults that watched over us, and that gave us our every meal. It seemed like we had big shoes to fill, and there would be plenty of time to fill them. Dibbles have quite a long growth, definitely not the longest, but it's a commitment. One that many small dibbles around me were committing to. Though for now we were many, Mother Nature isn't as kind as you think. Not all of us were going to make it to adulthood. Survival of the fittest was going to claim many lives. For now, though, we were watched over, though many creatures called outside. Most likely drawn in by the scent of spilt blood at the door. For now, we would have to practice, to improve. And what better way to learn than to squabble with each other? Now, the reason we were nested in this cave, you see that bright orange skin in the background? That is a Son of the Core skin, which you can only get from being nested in the volcano. We were all hoping to get that skin, but in the end, not everyone can be lucky. I definitely did not know how to do this, by the way. I was sort of learning as I went, so if this doesn't look like 1,000 IQ plays, you're just gonna have to... I don't know, just accept it, okay? I tried my best. I learned later on that you can actually hold space to... I don't know, it like quickly rotates your dino, and then you can get on the side of people and push them over. There's like a whole technique to this that I did not even know was a thing. Sparring. It's pretty cool, pretty funny. So I'm definitely gonna have to practice a bit more next time I play Dibble. And after some time, we all had little mini versions of the absolute horror inflicted on our parents. Little booty scratches. They're our battle scars. Or at least the closest we were gonna get to it for now. Suddenly, a little light caught my eye. If you've watched any of my Tenno videos, perhaps one where I was very blue, you might know that I love a good photo opportunity. An unfortunate human on the floor is the perfect photo op, and so I had to strike a few poses. It took a while, but eventually I got it just right. Hunger eventually drove us all from the safety of our cave, from the protection of our parents. And though they tried their best, they wouldn't be up to watch over all of us. And so eventually, a brave few of us decided to venture out. Whether or not that was a good idea is to be determined. Narrowly, I had just avoided the jaws of a carnotaurus. I screamed for help as I ran, hoping my parents might come to save me. But after a brief moment, I realized hiding might be the better option. And so, nervously, I took my place in this bush. One of my other siblings may have been eaten, while the third made their way quickly back to the cave. I didn't want to go back, however. But I wasn't ready to go back. I wanted to grow big and strong, and for that I would need my diets. There was no way I was going to go to Sanctuary. Jungle Sanctuary is known to be filled with nothing but carnivores, from the scurrying Trudons to the tree-climbing Herreras. There's no way I was going to go over there. And so I ran, oblivious to the danger that was barely footsteps away from me. I didn't know it now, but in this moment I was signing up for a lifetime of solitude. Once I had arrived to the lake, I ate a bit of grass and pretty much sat in a bush AFKing for a good chunk of time. I didn't want to be roaming around in a storm. Even though my movements would be masked by the rain, so too would the predators that hunted me, and I was not ready to defend myself. So it was better to just wait until I could at least hear their approach. Once I felt like it was safe, I came out and looked for food, but there was almost nothing. A few diets here and there, but they were on the other side of the water. That was a risky chance. But the last few diets that I'd gotten from my parents feeding me were beginning to fade, so it was a risk that eventually I was willing to take. I stuck to the outer edge, hoping that if a dino did come, I would be barely out of range. But as the bridge came to the end, I decided to make the plunge. Nothing came, however, even though I stumbled a bit. There were no dinos, probably because there was nothing for them to eat here. It was rather deserted, and it was also barren of food, so unfortunately I made the slow run back across. At this point, my patrol zone was giving me pretty much nothing, and as I journeyed, I was realizing how slow I was. Migration was like an infinite distance away. Let's just say I was ready to give up. At this point, I pointed myself in the direction of the northern jungle, and kind of sent it. I was ready to find a stray dino, and let it be done, so to say. There was no food anyway, so what's the point? I would just fight something gloriously and then maybe try again, or even play a different species. Though as I ran, I glanced behind me. I had to double take. Is that really what I think it was? A new patrol zone? My mind had been changed. As I entered the zone, I stopped to sniff, desperately hoping I would smell more than 1 or 2 diets. I needed a proper meal to get me going in life. At first, only 2 popped up, and so I ate. But then, I smelt many more. This was more like it. I grew and eventually traveled down into a new zone. Don't worry about my yellow stats. I had purposely overeaten to make myself puke so that my stomach would be emptier. Every now and then, the zone would clear and respawn. And so in those moments, I ran down to get a drink of water. Life was pretty much peaceful. There was no danger, but there was also no one to keep me company. It was lonely, to say the least. I even drank without using the water glitch for a change. This place was so empty that I genuinely felt bad for any dino that might have lived here, and if they grabbed me, they deserved it. But no dino ever came, and so I continued to eat. I continued packing on the pounds. And I kept making my gastrolith run. At this part of the crumbled fence, I like to imagine that I'm straight up just eating concrete. But the sun was setting on this chapter of my life. No longer would I have peace. The red glow of the fading light brought with it raptors. And the promise of a storm. It was going to be a long and stormy night for me. These raptors could smell my inexperience. They could see my little growth. And if I wanted to survive, I would have to fight as if I was already fully grown. Fight with the certainty that I'd come from a generation of fighters. I had those same parents' blood in my veins, and so I wouldn't let it go to waste. I quickly decided that the last thing I could show was fear. Though I called out, no one answered. And so I was on my own, and I would have to fight for myself. By myself. Exactly like a cornered animal, I kept my butt against the wall. If anyone got close enough, I charged them. Confidence would be my only weapon. If I hid and acted scared, there wasn't much chance that they would stay back. I had to keep the raptors on their toes, and keep them cautious. It didn't help that the light was rapidly fading. I was losing visibility, and as I tried to thrash the downed raptor, one of his friends jumped my back. This is when I realized the rock that I was sheltering by was pretty much useless. It wasn't knocking anyone off. So as much as I tried, this raptor remained latched on, chewing the absolute hell out of my rear end. This wasn't gonna work. I would need a tree, and with the storm rolling in, I would need a good supply of water. Lucky for me, the tree did its job. Lucky for the raptor, it did something else too. Somehow this raptor was able to just chill on the inside of the tree, and was invulnerable to my attacks. In a moment of bravery, I ran out away from my tree, hoping to catch off guard any stragglers in the storm. This raptor had run straight into me, and this one, I really don't know what was happening with this one. Maybe he disconnected or something. Either way, he wasn't going to be coming back. That was one less raptor to worry about. And the one that I had gotten stuck was still stuck, so for now he wasn't a problem either. But my water was draining quickly. I wouldn't be able to hang around forever. Eventually, we would all need to drink. I would have to buy as much time as I could get. After some time, I noticed the raptor in the tree was gone. It seems that they had logged out, and soon they would have to log back in, and so the other raptors made a push. It was a desperate attempt to buy time for their friend. And although they put in a good effort, they didn't get out of this unscathed. Now that they were hurt, they would need to back off. My water was low, and I was bleeding heavily. I hoped they would stay back, and I could go get my water. With water draining rapidly, this would be the new spot I would have to take my stand. It wasn't ideal. To shake off a raptor, I would have to dip myself underwater. And then they would swim faster than me, so I wouldn't be able to attack. But there seemed to be no other option. I would need to drink almost constantly. I tried to fill my water, but you'll see, eventually it chunks back down again. And so all there was to do was to continue threatening the raptors. I honestly don't know where they kept coming from. I assumed I hurt them all, and yet somehow there were more, constantly keeping an eye on me. And I think one of them had come back as a fresh spawn. Fresh spawns are small and hard to hit, and they can still pounce, so eventually they get your bleed down quite a bit. It wasn't something I could just let cling on like a leech. At least I was able to stand in somewhat deeper water, where they would have to jump to get to me, and that way I could still hold somewhat of an advantage. Raptors are like the unholy combination of vultures and sharks. They circle endlessly. They're opportunists. And they're so dang quick. Every time I heard one using the water glitch, I would try to catch it off guard. But they were staying careful for now. Well, all except the baby, which was a constant harassment. But I would say that's pretty typical for a baby raptor. But may I suggest, a battle isn't the place for children. And it isn't the place for daydreaming either. Always keep your eye out. The problem with pack animals is that they love to type and chat to each other. And so when you see one standing around, don't miss your opportunity. The adults may swim faster than me, but the babies? Not so much. Again I called, but again no one answered. I was isolated by the storm and by the location. Still, my water continued to drain rapidly. I couldn't leave the water. All I could do was try and take shots at any raptor that came by. And that's when I heard one eating. Never being one to miss an opportunity, I struck. Now I knew there must be more food around. If I could find what they were eating, maybe I could ambush them yet again. And maybe that's another reason to never let down your guard. Especially not around a massive herbivore. And especially not in a storm. Though they were cautious and they heard my splashing, they weren't looking close enough. And they paid the ultimate price. In return, I lost some blood, but I think it was worth it. Finally, for the most part, they had backed off. And I took a big, long drink, for the wind was changing. The claws of nighttime were loosening its grip on the island. And so too was the storm. The morning light turned the fog to pink, and I was able to lay down and rest. The raptors had lost, but there was one raptor that wasn't done with me. He was persistent, yet always out of reach. I wanted to log off, because as usual I'd stayed up until 3 a.m. But this little raptor would not let me get a wink of rest. Even as the sun rose high, he continued to follow me. Every time I tried to retaliate, he would scurry out of reach. Ever annoying and evasive. Until finally, he latched on. This was very much not appreciated. I wasn't sure whether to run or walk, but eventually I decided to run. My blood wasn't that low that I'd have to worry about just one raptor, but I did really want to log off, and I didn't need his whole family to heal and come back for round 2. Plus, I wasn't really sure if the visibility would help or hinder them. I assumed it would probably help. And so, if I wanted to get this raptor, I was gonna have to play some mind games. He was cautious, yet eager. And I was mildly pissed off. I was tired and annoyed, and I needed this little troublemaker to get lost. And so I continued my plan. Drink water and pretend not to notice him. At last, I had won. The raptors were beaten. I had my victory, and I had my sleep. The next day, I logged in to be greeted by a beautiful sunny day. I ran up towards my new patrol zone, and when I looked back, I noticed someone was trailing me. It was a carno. I don't think anyone's ever excited to see a carno. I wasn't fully grown, and so I wasn't sure if he would be able to stun me. Either way, so long as his friends didn't come to help, I would be fine. Especially now that I had this rock that I could back up to if I needed. This big guy seemed to have plenty of confidence, so I was about to give him a lesson. Surprisingly, after all that, he wanted some more. He tanked some more damage, meanwhile I was relatively unscathed. Well, actually completely unscathed. Did he learn his lesson? Well, no. I don't think carnos ever learn their lesson the first time. But that's okay. I'm a patient teacher. And I would happily teach him again why he shouldn't mess with the Dibble all on his own. After that, he ran off and sat in the grass with his teammate, who did absolutely nothing at all to help. Eventually, I got bored, and I made my way up to the volcano, because guess what? There was another storm coming. These sandstorms were out of hand at the time. That's when I found someone taking over the cave. In hindsight, I actually know these dinos now. And occasionally I join them on stream to chat or lay eggs or do whatever they get up to in the evenings. And speaking of laying eggs, they were actually going to lay eggs here, in the volcano. They were trying to get that same mutation my parents were trying to give me. As a hatchling, my parents defended the cave against dinos, and now that these dinos were making their nest here, they felt as though they should defend the cave from me. And of course, they probably wanted to feed me to their children as well. I really didn't want to have to go out in the storm and run all the way back down to the water. If you're in the cave, you don't take damage from the storm, so I really did want to just stay in here and chill. While, of course, screaming at the dinos, because that's what I do best. They, however, really wanted to eat me, so it was sort of a game of cat and mouse, of them letting me climb up on the rock and then trying to ambush me. But of course, I felt confident as always. I felt as though no slow land lizard could catch me. I'm fast and nimble. And plus, since they were running around, they wouldn't have the stamina to carry me all the way back to the water and drown me. So what could they do at most? Nibble me? Chase me around? I had no idea the type of danger a duo could dish out. For now, I watched grumpily, considering leaving the cave, as the dino claimed my rock. But this is my damn cave. I was born here. I have a right to be here. And so I made the decision that changed my destiny. I turned around. Instead of leaving, like I should have, I walked back in. I wanted to get back on my rock, but as I tried to climb up, I got stuck. Danger was coming, so I ran right into the jaws of the dinos. Now this was a new strategy for me. Despite tactile giving me more stam, and the head bites reducing incoming damage, there was nothing that could be done. And so, in the great circle that is life, I returned back to the earth. Born into dino death, I now become food for dino life.